You're listening to the ADHD Support Talk Radio podcast. ADHD Support Talk is sponsored by ADDclasses.com. Visit www.addclasses.com to sign up for free webinars today. Well, hello, and welcome back to ADHD Support Talk Radio. I'm your co-host, Lynne Edris. I'm a productivity and ADHD coach, and I work with overwhelmed professionals from all over the world to help them reduce procrastination, improve time management, and get more done with less effort so that they can have more time, more energy, and even more money for what they love most. As you guys know, I'm a woman with ADD myself, so I have been where so many of you are and where so many of my clients are. And I've gone from living in that constant state of chaos and underperformance and overwhelm to a life of more success and fulfillment than I ever dreamed possible. And I know you can share the same success too. You can learn more about me, what I do, and the programs and services I offer at www.coachingadvantages.com. And when you sign up through my website or text to the keyword HACK, that's HACK, to 444999, I'll send you my 7 foolproof productivity hacks to help you add hours of free time to your weeks by investing just a few smart minutes each day. Well, today I'm excited. I have with me Jason Hsieh, and we're going to talk about some struggles that are near and dear to many of your hearts, I'm quite sure. We're talking about juggling, family, business, personal life, and all of the things we have to juggle as ADHD professionals. Many of us are entrepreneurs, many of us are professionals in different settings, and I think every single person with ADHD, whether you have kids or not, can relate to the juggling act that we all have to do. So welcome, Jason.
Hi, good morning. Thank you so much for having me on the show today.
Well, I'm excited to talk with you. Well, tell the listeners a little bit about you and what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, definitely. So my name is Jason Hsieh. I was born and raised in Taiwan. I'm also a proud father of 3 kids. My oldest son is 8. His name is Keanu. He has autism and ADHD. And personally, I also have ADD myself. I also operate a business called Lucky Kid. So Lucky Kid is a product design company. It's an e-commerce company that we design products that help kids affected by autism, ADHD, and sensory processing disorders. And our mission is to empower the kids so they can live a life full of possibilities. And we do that in many different ways. We try to educate, provide support, and also provide the right product for the kids, for the families, that they can succeed at home and also in the classrooms.
Amazing. And it's an amazing effort, and it's something that's very much needed. So tell the listeners where they can find out more about Lucky Kid.
So Lucky Kid is spelled as LAKIKID. You can find us on social media, on Facebook, and if you are also a parent that struggle with ADHD or autism, we also run a parent support group. It's called Ask an Autism Parents, that you can Google and find us and join our parent support group. And we also run a podcast called Ask an Autism Mom that you can find on iTunes or Stitchers. And you can also find us on our own store, it's luckykids.com, or you can find us on Amazon as well.
Tell us, a little bit to begin with, how you got started on this. I mean, I know your son was diagnosed with autism when he was much younger. Tell me a little bit about your journey as an entrepreneur and kind of some of the struggles that you've had to deal with starting a business, running a business, working as an adult with ADHD and a parent.
Yeah, so first of all, it definitely life could be very overwhelming sometimes. So for me, the way I started is in 2013, me and my wife was living back in Japan at that time, and that's when we first know about our son's diagnosis with autism ADHD. But in Japan, and I think that's also true for a lot of other Asian countries, a lot of the support and the help and the product and the therapy that you can get is very limited. So 3 years ago, we decided that it's just not the right environment for our son to succeed. And I don't think Japan to have the support that we can really provide to our son. So we decided to move back to Seattle, Washington as our way to finding a better environment for him to be successful in his life. And shortly after that, I started Lucky Kid and the business on the side. Even today, I still have a full-time job, and I'm still running this business on the side as a side hustle. So you can imagine how much things I have going on all at the same time, while juggling the business, a day job, and a family with 3 kids. All 3 of them have different medical issues. So the reason why I started the business with Lucky Kids is I realized how much the families, when you are dealing with this diagnosis, autism, ADHD, or sensory processing disorders, it could be very overwhelming. Sometimes you feel like you're really alone and you don't know who to talk to. I was in the phase of denial for the first 6 months. I think that's kind of common because I was talking to a lot of other autism dads. I was in a few autism dad support groups. The phase of denial is kind of common, especially for men, because sometimes we just don't want to accept that something wrong with our kids. We want to fix them. We want to find out this definitely I can figure out a solution to fix it, because as a man I always like to fix things and try to make it right. But with something like autism or ADHD, you cannot fix it. It's just the way they are. So you need to deal with how they are and try to treat them in a way that's appropriate. So I struggled with that for the first 6 months back in 2013 when I first heard about my son's diagnosis. There's a lot of negative talk that's happening within me that I need to really deal with, because
absolutely,
I think you really need to help yourself before you can help your kid. And I think that is one of the biggest struggles I had with my journey.
Absolutely. And honestly, I mean, I went through a similar, I think a lot of people go through a similar process when they have a child diagnosed with ADHD, or when they themselves are diagnosed in adulthood with ADHD or something else, that they go through. It really can mirror the stages of grief. And I know when I have a psychology degree, I studied human development. So I knew what ADHD was. I knew what it looked like. Of course, I'm a good bit older. I'm 53, so we're going back like 20. My oldest is 23. He'll be 24 in a few weeks. And when he was little and I knew it was ADHD, I knew that's what was going on, I still believed, as a mom, as a problem solver, as a, whatever, understanding behavior modification and all of that, that I could help him enough that he didn't need medical intervention. And it was actually my husband who finally said, you're doing everything you can. We're doing everything we can, but we can't be with him 24/7. I think it's time that we, talk to a doctor. I mean, it was my husband that said, we've pretty much run the gamut. we've pretty much done everything that we know how to do, and it's time for us to look at getting some help outside of these 4 walls. I don't know. I think it's hard for a lot of parents to accept. I know, but I've been an ADHD coach for over 12 years now, and I've never met a parent that took that diagnosis lightly or took the medication decision lightly. It's a very difficult thing for a parent to deal with. It's a very difficult thing for a family to deal with, regardless of what the diagnosis is. And when you're a parent struggling with similar kinds of things yourself, you really do have to get your, crap so to speak, together so that you can help your kids. And that's one of the things I think that's hardest about being a parent with ADHD, of kids with ADHD and other challenges.
Definitely. And it's funny that you brought up about being diagnosed as an adult. I actually didn't get a diagnosis until a few months ago. So the reason why I even find out that I have ADD, or because I don't really get hyper, so I guess I'm more ADD. But I was doing a whole bunch of research on ADHD and figured out how to help my son. The more research I do, the more I realize I'm checking all the boxes myself. And it's like, it's like the more I look into it, it's like, what? This is me. This is what's happening to me on a daily basis. I didn't realize this is ADHD or ADD. I just thought this is the way I am. So now, after the diagnosis, in a way, it's actually relieving, because now it explains my childhood, because I went to 5 different high schools because I struggled in school a lot. So that kind of explains why I went through that. when I was in high school, I didn't know why I struggled so much in classroom. I couldn't concentrate. I had issues, a whole bunch of different issues at school. I saw it just because it's me. I'm this Asian kid. I moved to the United States when I was 15. It's because English is not my first language. Maybe that's why I struggle. But putting ADHD on top of all that was happening, immigrant and being someone that doesn't speak English as their first language, I think that I saw that was the main reason. But now looking back, I realized actually ADHD was the main cause of behind all that struggle. So that kind of really connects the dot, and that kind of helped me to really face my own issues up front. Of course, I'm not saying that after the diagnosis, everything is a miracle, everything will be solved. No. I'm not saying that.
You still got a lot of work to do, right?
Yeah. I'm just saying that by getting to know yourself better or getting to know myself better, it helped me better to understand how to handle my situation and how to be a better father, how to be a better dad, how to be a better husband.
Absolutely. And I don't think I've ever talked about this on this show, but it's something I talk with clients about all the time. I actually, even though I studied psychology and even though I knew at the time, again, I'm a little older, I graduated from college in 1988. But back then, when we studied ADHD, I remember sitting in my first class and I was learning about ADHD. And I've got 3 sisters, and I come from a household like just replete with ADHD. I mean, I just thought that was our craziness was normal. I didn't know until I was an adult or I got older that everyone's homes aren't full of the flurry and the craziness. I don't have the hyperactivity, so I'm like the only one in the family that doesn't have the hyperactivity, so I have the inattentive ADHD. And I remember sitting in I guess it was like a childhood psych class or whatever, and they're going through at that time like the symptoms of ADHD, and I'm checking boxes, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh. But they taught us at that time that it didn't happen in girls except in rare circumstances, and that it was something that was outgrown in adolescence. And I remember sitting there thinking, I'm so glad I've outgrown this, because that's what was believed medically at that time. And then it was like after I had my son, and I always struggled. I didn't struggle as much in school, like academically. I struggled with the remembering assignments, the last-minute papers. My mom did an awful lot of running to the high school at the last minute with the homework that I left on the counter and gym uniforms and all of that stuff. But it really wasn't until I realized what was going on with my son, like out of the gate, because he was extremely hyperactive, like right from the get-go. Really trying to brush up on my understanding of ADHD and kind of modernizing what I knew and as I was learning more kind of up-to-date stuff about ADHD in like the mid-90s, that's when I was like, oh, crap. This is why I'm having such a hard time, because for me, like the bottom fell out when I became a parent, so to speak. That's when my ADHD really took over. It's all the things that you have to juggle with a career and all of that. I could manage, and it was for sure not like at the level of my abilities, but I was getting by okay. And, not the healthiest coping mechanisms with all-nighters and last-minute stuff and working crazy hours and all of that. But all of that was doable until I had kids. And then that extra layer of complexity and all of that really just, it was like the things that I had been doing to get by stopped working. So I wasn't diagnosed until I was probably, I'm thinking I was 32, till I got my formal diagnosis. And even then, when I first started pursuing it, people were questioning, well, you're pretty calm. I'm like, well, I'm the inattentive type, right?
Misunderstanding. I think that a lot of people say, oh, ADHD must be hyper.
Right. Really good proportion of us that don't have that hyperactivity, or any of our hyperactivity is, I would say, like my hyperactivity is cognitive. My brain goes a mile a minute all the time. My body not so much.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a juggling act, right? So with everything you juggle, and it's a lot, what are some of the things that help you the most? that you would?
I think one thing that helped me the most is to have some kind of morning routine.
Yeah.
And I have a little bit of crazy routine compared to most of other people, I suppose, because I wake up at 4:30 a.m. in the morning.
That's amazing.
That's
a
little bit earlier than regular people.
A little bit, yeah.
But
I always joke that I didn't get that gene, but
yeah, but having said that, I do have a day job, and I'm running a business on the side.
Right.
So the only time I have is really early morning before I headed to work.
Right.
So this is my strategy. I'm trying to figure out the time, try to squeeze in time that I don't have. And for me, morning usually is the best time because all the kids are asleep. It's quiet around the house. I have some time. I will do meditations in the mornings before I start. I would also recommend a really good book. It's called Miracle Morning. And in that book, we talk about morning routine as well and talk about different things you can do in the morning before you start your day. I think for everyone, not just individuals with ADHD, having a good morning routine is really going to help your performance in that day. If you wake up like tired and you're rushing and start sitting in traffic, and that's just not a good way to start your day. And I think just having that morning routine that you can establish, that's really going to help yourself to have a better performance throughout the day. So
I think so too, and it's one of the getting my routines in order. Creating routines, I always call them rhythms because some of my ADD clients don't like the word routine because it sounds like confining and constraining and boring and all of that. So, but having a good rhythm, having a good routine to your days and to your weeks, it takes a lot of the things that are draining your mental and your physical energy out of the equation because things that are a matter of routine, things that happen recurringly, are processed in a different part of brain that uses less energy. It also gets all that stuff out of your to-do list, right? You don't need to be tracking all of the things that you create routines for. So it definitely frees up your head and your time and everything. And I think the morning routine, for me and for most of my clients, the morning routine and the before bed evening routine that sets up the morning routine to be easier are the most important parts of your day. For a lot of reasons.
Definitely.
And you don't have to get up at 4:30 in the morning to have a successful morning routine. That's not. I did not get that gene. I could not do that consistently. And trust me, because I've tried when my kids were little. It's just not how my body clock works. But I've always had a solid morning routine. And I really do believe for everybody, regardless of whether you're a morning person or not, or maybe especially if you're not a morning person, that morning routine can set their trajectory for the entire day.
Exactly. I 100% agree with that. Yeah.
That's awesome. So you are amazing getting up as early as you do and doing everything that you do. What are some of the other things that help you with that juggle?
The other thing I do a lot, of course, I don't. It depends on how long your commute, because like I mentioned, I still have a day job. So I have a very long commute. So I have a 1 hour commute in the morning, 2.5 hour commute on the way back home. So you're talking about 3.5 hours just sitting in traffic every single day. So for me, I spend a lot of time in the car. So that's where I have all my conference calls while I'm sitting in traffic. That's kind of my golden hour, because with my small startup, I run a small team. I have a team of 5 people, including myself, that I need to constantly in communication with my project manager, with my marketing manager, with my social media manager, and all the people in my team. So the best time I have meetings and have communication with everyone is while I'm sitting in traffic. So I try to structure and schedule meetings around the time that I'll be sitting in traffic every single day. So I try to get the best out of that time. So instead of sitting in traffic, I will be doing productive and just talking to my team member or talking to potential clients or talking to potential business partners while I'm in traffic. That's what I do every single day. If I'm not in a meeting, I'm always listening to podcasts or I'm always listening to some kind of training video, because that's just the way I am. And listening to like podcasts like yours how to
right.
deal with ADHD,
right.
and that's just the way I try to find more time.
What I call your efficient use of your commute time, I call that looking for windows of opportunity. There obviously are a lot of things you can't do while you're driving, and not everybody's going to be well suited to have their business calls while they're driving, but there are lots of other things you can do in those small sort of windows of downtime that can be really helpful. If you're creative and you can think how you can be organized and how you can use those little windows of time more effectively and really be open to the kinds of things that you can do even in pieces while you're a captive audience somewhere, you can get a lot done. So anything else you'd want the listeners to know about the juggle that we all face, really, whether you're a parent, whether you're an entrepreneur, just living in this world with stuff coming at you 24/7?
One more thing I will recommend is definitely look at the setting on your mobile device, because that is the most distracting device in your entire life. Just think about how many times you pick up your phone. So what I do, I turn out almost all notifications on my phone. So usually I don't pick up phone call while I'm working, because I'll put it on do not disturb. And the other thing I do is, if you use an iPhone or Android device, there's a phone setting you can go in and just start turning out all the notifications you're getting on the billion of apps that you have on the phone. Those are super distracting. Yep. Turn off all the notifications, because attention is the goal. Attention is the currency in today's modern age. And every single advertiser on the planet is trying to get your attention. Especially you are an entrepreneur and you're a professional. Everyone trying to put their own marketing message in front of you. But if you don't find a way to turn those off and try to have sanity for yourself, you are not going to be productive. And that's huge. The other thing that's really distracting for me is, most of the apps, you have a notification number. It's 99. It's you have 99 read email. For me, that was super distracting. I always want to click on the 99 numbers because I feel like that's something I have to do. But that's a setting to turn that off, so it doesn't show that number. Not a lot of people know that. You can turn off that setting so it doesn't show that numbers, and that really helps, especially when you have ADHD. Sometimes you're kind of obsessive. When you see this number, you just have to click on it. And for me, turning it off really helped me. So my phone is really clean. There's no distractions. I only look at it when I want to look at it. And I try not to be on social media that much. Sometimes it couldn't help because but I try to dedicate a time if I want to use social media, if I want to use Facebook, if I want to use Instagram or other social media. I only dedicate maybe 30 minutes a day just checking out the social media status. But just make sure you don't get sucked into it. Because the thing about Facebook, that's how they make money, is trying to keep you on their platform. That's how they make their advertising money.
It's
that's
true
how
for all of them,
money.
right?
Exactly,
there's a whole science. There are whole industries of people trying to suck you in. It's not just you.
They have a whole data scientists trying to study how they can keep people on their platform. So you need to realize that. You need to take back control of that.
Absolutely.
That's very, very important. So if you don't have control of that, then you just have someone else control your life.
Absolutely.
So I think that's very important with everything that's going on. So I would recommend all the listeners, if you haven't done already, take a look at your phone and start changing all the settings, turn off all the notifications, turn off all those crazy, annoying numbers that appear on every single app. Just by doing that alone, you will be twice as productive as you were yesterday. Just by
you will be amazed.
You'll be amazed how much more productive you can be just by doing those small changes.
You've got to take control of those things. It's absolutely imperative. Jason, any last thoughts you want to leave our listeners with, and then tell them again, how they can find more out about you and Lucky Kid?
Of course. So I think the last thought is remember you're not alone, and a lot of the people out there struggling with ADHD or ADD, and just don't afraid to ask for help. You can find me if you have a question to ask. Just reach out to me. You can find me on I think Facebook is the best way to find me, and you can find out about Lucky Kid and everything we do. Right now, we are also doing a partnership with a large nonprofit organization called Culture City. Culture City starts with K. If you haven't checked them out, definitely check them out. They have a lot of wonderful programs that help kids with autism, ADHD, and sensory processing disorders. The biggest program they have is called Sensory Inclusive, and they have about 280 locations across the United States, Canada, United Kingdom, and also Australia. So if you can download their app, you can find out where is the nearest sensory inclusive location near your place. Those sensory-friendly locations can really help you. And that program has been wonderful. So if you haven't checked out Culture City, make sure you check them out. And I'm just honored to be able to partner with them.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, thanks so much, Jason. It's been wonderful to have you here. Thank you all for listening. Again, this is ADHD Support Talk Radio. I'm your co-host, Lynne Edris, and we'll catch you again next time. Thanks again, Jason.
Thank you.